Chapter 1 is a look at Texas political culture and Texas diversity. There are several things that we will address in this chapter. Let's talk about what those are. These are the three. First, we're going to talk about politics and political culture in the state. We'll talk a little bit about public policies. And then we will move to a section where we talk about the different regions in the state. Every Texas government book divides the state into different regions. This author chose to do 9 of them. But the whole point is that the state is huge and that political culture is different in different parts of the state. And then the last section is a very unusual section. We're going to talk about political struggles that different demographic groups have had in the state. So looking through the court system, so you know that I'm psyched and geeked and I love this part, we're going to be looking at the court system and different struggles that demographic groups have had that are Texas based. So let's make sure that we start out with a definition. Before we can talk about what the political culture is in the state, we have to start with making sure that we understand what political culture means. So when we say the word political culture, we're talking about the political values, and more specifically, the dominant political values and beliefs of a certain group of people. And when we look at the dominant political values and beliefs, we are looking at how people feel about how government should conduct itself, what powers it should have, and also the services that people believe that government should provide. And it does differ with different political cultures. Now, that being said, the dominant political culture in Texas is conservative. This is across party lines. This is across demographics. We find that dominantly you will find people that behave in a way that is conservative. And what does that mean? That means that we don't like government to tax us. We do not like a lot of economic regulation. And Texas has one of the lowest levels of provisions of social services. WIC, SNAP. Those are 2 good examples. Conservatives, at least social conservatives, have a tendency to support traditional values and to support traditional lifestyles. And in general, when there is a big sweeping call for some social change, some change in the way that we conduct ourselves, conservative people are very slow to say, yes, let's do that. Yes, let's change that. Not that it never happens, but it takes a while and some convincing and usually some huge event. On the other hand, when we talk about liberal, and if we're just looking at the words, conservative means keep things low when you conserve things. Liberal, usually we associate with generosity. And people that describe themselves as liberal, like if you ask them what is your political culture and they write down liberal, are low. Now, I would argue that the number is growing, but it is a distinct minority in Texas, and we're not at this point talking about political parties at all. And so what liberals believe is that government's job is to get involved and improve the social status and the welfare of individuals, that's government's job. They also believe that the only way that you're going to achieve fairness is through regulation. That regulation from the government is necessary. Liberals have a tendency to support civil rights. And I always get tickled when I see a tolerance for social change. Liberals have a tendency to have more than a tolerance. They usually are the drivers of social change. So, that being said, let's talk about political parties just a little bit. And we know that when we say the word conservative, that we primarily associate that with the Republican Party in our state. And when we say the word liberal, if they're the ones that are usually going to be Democrats, maybe Green Party, but there just are not very many people that assign themselves to the Green Party in our state. So on the screen, you should see the 2016 presidential election results. And I love Politico because Politico goes and compiles this and then puts it in nice, easy to see and read chunks. So this is the 2016 presidential election. 2020 is an election year, so we'll have brand new results sometime this year or next. And so, but for 2016, the two primary candidates, the Republican candidate was Donald Trump, the Democratic candidate was Hillary Clinton. We also had a Libertarian candidate, his name was Gary Johnson, and a Green Party candidate, Jill Stein. So if we're looking at this map, you don't see any yellow on the map. You see a lot of red, you see quite a bit of blue, and then you see this one green, and that just means that they never properly certified their results. So we don't know. We know. But so this is the two squares. This is Tarrant County, this is Dallas County, this is Collin County, this is Denton County. So let's look at raw numbers. Donald Trump got 52.6% of the vote, while Hillary Clinton, the Democratic candidate, got 43.4%. Look at these numbers though. 4.6 million or 4.7 million and 3.9 million. I think that they do some discussion in MindTap about what this really means, so I won't belabor the point here, but just note that there's not very many counties on this map, but in those, 20 or so counties, with this being Harris County and this being Jefferson County, Dallas County, Travis County, Bexar County. This is where Austin is. This is where San Antonio is. This is El Paso. And then several states, several cities in the southern region, Hidalgo County, Starr County, Cameron County. That's all I got. That there must be large concentrations of people in those areas. And that is one thing that is clear, that Democratic candidates tend to do better in urban areas, and people are concentrated in urban areas. Despite the picture that people have of Texas, people are concentrated in urban areas in our state. Let's look at another. This is the 2018 midterm elections. And so this was for the United States Senator from Texas. And this was a contest between Beto O'Rourke, who was the Democratic candidate, and Ted Cruz, the Republican candidate. Notice that it is much closer. That is more votes than we've had for a Democratic candidate really ever in the state. Even though Democrats for years dominated Texas politics, um, and you see some of the same patterns, except notice that Tarrant County went for the Democratic candidate. You see not only Travis County and Bear County, but ooh, are they gonna tell me Hayes? I think it is. So this is Travis County, and then this is, help me out, I think it's called Hayes County. Beto O'Rourke um, really captured the imagination of Democrats. Democrats came out, and it is going to be very interesting to see if Democratic candidate is able to hold Tarrant County, which is the largest county with the largest urban area that has gone for a Democrat, that usually goes for Republicans in our state. So if we are looking at what things people believe, 47% of people that were polled said that they were conservative, while 22% identified themselves as liberal. Let's look a little bit at how that breaks down by race. So blue is liberal, the gold is moderate, the red is conservative. So of all registered voters, there's that first number that we saw on the first page, 47% conservative, 31% moderate, 22% liberal. If we look by gender, you see that men that were polled showed themselves to be more conservative, 52% more, 52 as opposed to 42% of women. And women, the larger number is moderate in Texas. So still a small percentage of those liberal. Now, let's look at African Americans. It only gives us 3 categories here. So African Americans, Anglo, and Latino. And African Americans, larger percentage, identified as liberal. We're looking at 48%. Identified themselves as moderate. I'm sorry. The liberal was only 27%. 25% said conservative. And if you look at Anglo, much larger percentage described themselves as conservative. Latino, 34% conservative, the largest number being moderate. So just looking at those 3 demographic groups, you still are not seeing a large percentage describing themselves as liberal. Finally, let's look at some generational stuff. So when we say this starts at millennial, so that's born in 1980 or so. Those folks are getting on up there now. They're in their late 20s to mid to 30s. Now, a larger percentage of them identifies liberal, but still the largest number is moderate, and still 36% say they are conservative. Gen X, that's me, born in 1970, and Gen X is about 1965 till about 76, 79 or so. Much larger percentage must be contributing to that conservative moniker. Now, baby boomers, that's my mom's generation. Baby boomers were born after World War II, so really about 1964 going as far back as 1947, somewhere in there, 47, 48. And so they are older, and they are have a much larger percentage of people that consider themselves conservative. And then finally, the silent generation. So these are the octogenarians and older. They are pre-World War One and World War Two, kind of between World War One and World War Two, and 62% identify themselves as conservative. So, and those that are physically able, this is also the largest group that of voters, largest percentage of voters. This concludes section 1.